Hey Jude, don't be afraid. You were made to watch Dungeon Meshy. Hello, hi, Dungeon Meshy. Let us meshy some more motherfucking dungeon because I've been off this anime for a bit because other stuff took priority, but now I have some time to watch it again. I want to just do that. It's kind of the only thing I really want to do right now. So it's what I'm gonna do. And if you've been following this reaction series so far, you might notice that things look a little tiny bit different on screen right now. Because I'm doing things in a ever so slightly different way. Because I got tired of dealing with the way that Netflix's interface was fucking with my method of recording these things and causing trouble and problems. Bothered me a lot, annoyed me. So I've decided to not deal with that any longer. I've decided that I just don't want to, and I've got it in a place in a way where I can go back and forth very freely, and I can look at the animation all I want, and it's very easy and very simple, and I prefer that greatly. So that's what I'm gonna do. Now, while this is a way more convenient way to do it for me, it is unfortunately a slightly less convenient way for me to do it for you. Because I don't have access to the time-left time code. On Netflix, if you're watching on Netflix, which of course you are, because that's where the show is legally available, they use there's this much time left in the episode time code in order to let you know where you are in the thing, rather than how much time has elapsed. I don't have that kind of a time code. I only have how much time has elapsed. So that's a little annoying, because you're going to be using that timer to stay in sync with me as we watch I believe on Netflix you can still see how much time has elapsed, but still, because that's how we're going to stay in sync with each other, because I'm not going to play you a full episode of Dungeon Meshi on screen right now. That's how you get an infestation of copyright lawyers, and I don't have the appropriate bug spray for that right now. So instead, I'm going to be, well, for the most part, showing you this, with a little bit of a subtitle card up in the top of the screen that'll show you the subtitles of whatever dialogue happens to be happening. For the most part, sometimes the dialogue goes on top of the screen. I don't really understand why. But most of the time, it'll show you that, and you'll use that along with the time code to help you stay in sync with what I'm doing. Basically, is how this is supposed to work. So you're gonna have a little bit more trouble on your end, maybe figuring out how exactly to stay in sync with the thing, but it's going to be way easier for me, and unfortunately that's what matters, because this is my fuck around and play around and chill out and relax and have fun channel, so convenience for me takes priority over convenience for you. Sorry about that, but the upside is, because I can now scroll back and forth through the animation much more smoothly, I can ramble even more extensively and go insane about how good the animation in this goddamn show is, which is hopefully an upside, a benefit from your perspective. I hope so, anyway. Yeah. Okay. Sorry for the long-winded explanation, but that's unfortunately, that's just the way it kind of has to go. So, set your timers all the way back down to 00000 over on the Netflixes, and let's watch some goddamn Dungeon Meshi, shall we? 3, 2, 1, go. Waiting to get through the Netflix logo things. Oh shit, I forgot to give you the pause instructions. Every once in a while, I'm going to have more to say than what I can comfortably say while the episode is just playing back. At that point, I will give you a countdown and say 3, 2, 1, pause, and we will both pause at the same time. I will say my stuff, which can be of anything from 30 seconds to tens of minutes long, and then I'll say 3, 2, 1, go, and then we'll play the episode at the same time also, and that's how we're going to stay in sync throughout this whole thing. Again, time code, subtitles, hopefully those will help you identify where I am and sort of sync up with me. It's inconvenient, but I don't want to, I'd have to hire an editor to work on this otherwise, and I cannot afford to do that. At least not yet. Hint, hint, Patreon. No, I'm not gonna fucking plug that. But yeah, maybe someday. Maybe someday I'll this be, possible for me to hire an editor, and you could get more traditional sort of reactions out of me that way. Yeah, that would be nice. It would be lovely if such a thing were possible, but not yet. Not yet. I love this intro, by the way. Oh boy, it's the other animation team on this one. That lion there again, huh? Oh? Yeah! That genuinely kind of got me. Ooh. What? Ugh. World building. Mm-hmm. Well, well. 3, 2, 1, pause. See? The very obvious parallel is like they are inside the dungeon. They are being digested by the dungeon, right? And this is that central thematic thing we've been talking about of like the process of eating and being eaten and the ways in which these things changes, like the ways that the things we eat become a part of us, right? And like the idea of how being eaten by someone else makes you a part of them, right? And that's what we've been talking about, is the party has been descending into the dungeon. More and more they're becoming a part, like Senshi already is like a part of the dungeon's ecosystem, right? And the party have also become more and more part of the dungeon as they've been eating more and more of the dungeon. And have changed more and more over the course of that adventure, as like they have taken in the dungeon and the dungeon has taken them in, right? Because like just as much as they've been changed by eating of the dungeon, they have also been changed by being eaten by the dungeon. No one more explicitly than Fallon, who was very, very literally eaten by the dungeon and came out the other side changed by that experience, right? And same thing with like that little thematic through line is just like there, like delicious in dungeon. Just hanging by there. It's themes, man. Like just consistent, good, well-written, thought-through theming, which is something that's like I was about to say rare in anime, but no, it's not. It's not especially rare in anime. It's rare in media, right? In general. Like it's fucking. Oh my god! It's like it's not that there aren't themes in Marvel movies, but like come on, like it's Marvel products have themes, but they're rarely this interesting. Is the thing. It's not that it doesn't have themes. It's that it rarely has themes that are this interesting and this creative and this like in some ways transgressive, right? Because like Dungeon Meshi keeps asking that question of like of something very fundamental to human nature, which is food, which is eating, and something which has to do with like bodily functions and like blood and secretions and viscera and like thinking very deeply about the nature of things. Whereas you go to watch like most stuff put out by Marvel and Disney is like, oh, this nice to have friends. I mean, I'm being denigrating because I'm so fucking tired of the MCU by this point, but it is a thing of like Hollywood in general has a different relationship to themes. And like themes like what Dungeon Meshi has around food and bodies is stuff that usually like has to be snuck in there by a clever subversive filmmaker, right? Like who sort of somehow manages to get a weird movie with some strange themes greenlit by producers who don't fully understand what the guy's trying to do. Like that sort of thing, right? But here it's just like it's this esoteric, and like it's not even fucking like in on the scale of like the history of literature. Like it's not that weird. It's stuff that's been explored before by other authors. Like it's been a part of like the sort of the implementation of the concept of like cannibalism, the concept of being eaten, the concept of like what it means to take another living creature into your body. That's like a staple of literature since fucking forever. But like the last time I remember like Western media engaging deeply with the idea of like eating and like being eaten, and indeed like with the ways that eating and being eaten changes you, was like fucking the Hannibal show that ran on, what was it, Showtime or something? Like I can't remember. It was like some cable network did like a prestige series about Hannibal. Like Hannibal the Cannibal, right? Like Hannibal Lecter, that ran for like 3 seasons, had a huge cult fan following, but not enough to keep it from getting canceled after 3 seasons. And that engaged very, very deeply with these like really fucking weird, abstract ideas and like these thematic explorations of consumption and eating and shit like that. And that like, but that's not, you're not gonna fucking get that on HBO. You're not going to get that from the MCU. Like, you're not going to get that in like most TV. And I'm really, really genuinely not saying this as sort of like, oh yes, Japan has such much more refined pop culture, blah, blah, blah. Like none of that shit. It's just nice. I just like that Dungeon Meshi is going there and exploring these things And that's not a product of like Japan being special or weird or Hollywood being especially morally corrupt. It's a product of just like these are different creative ecosystems that create and prioritize different things. But I just like it, is my point. That's what I was trying to get at. Anyway, 3, 2, 1, go. Oh, another lion statue with wings. The translation of those lines never really works in English. Oh, poor Martial. Oh, it's like a snake egg. Oh, man, I'm glad I just had a big meal, because otherwise I'd get hungry. Laios, please don't eat bricks. Oh, hey, it's the ninjas. Aw. Hey, it's the boy. Yeah. He's not doing well. Cabro, huh? Our lovely little sociopathic serial killer. Well, he's not sociopathic at all, but, you know. Clever boy. Chill Chuck. You should probably have like a nap or something, dude. Oh no, buddy. He's not gonna be happy. Okay. 3, 2, 1, pause. Character design time. So I happen to know ahead of time that Shuro and Laios are gonna have a bit of a conflict. And that conflict is established in multiple ways. Like, just it. A lot of it sort of relies on the context of, like, Japanese culture. And I am not an expert in that. I have absorbed smidgens by watching a bunch of anime and sort of picking up on some of the social conventions that are present there. But what I do know about Japanese society is that there is a very specific set of, like, it's like I think it's called being a high context society, which is a style of being where a lot of things are based on inference, on like oblique and like indirect signals that everyone involved in a particular social situation are expected to sort of pick up on, right? Like etiquette rules, like unspoken rules of engagement and behavior, ways of addressing each other, ways of relating to one another socially that are sort of coded into behavior, culturally, sort of in a very natural way that can lead people who are not born into the culture to have some difficulty in parsing out like the social signals that are being sent there, which is sort of as opposed to what might be called a low context culture. Like I and again, not an anthropologist, I don't know enough about these to speak on them with any kind of authority, but there are other kinds of cultures where like things are much more direct and things are much more directly spoken, right? And where directness itself is a mark of politeness, right? Like it's different ways of being. And Laios is what you might call sort of culturally low context, in the sense of he's very comfortable speaking completely directly to anyone he meets, very openly, very earnestly, very honestly, as we see when he encounters Shuro, right? Like his immediate reaction is like, "Hey buddy, how you been? Oh man, it's great to see you," like jumping around just happily with a very free spirit, right? And speaking to him like, "I'm relieved to see you're doing well, buddy." And then we get Toshiro's servant being like, "Holy like how the hell do you speak to him like so directly?" Because from her cultural perspective, that's a very rude thing to do, right? Like if you do that, it's because you mean to be rude, right? Unless there is some kind of specific context that makes it okay. Whereas for Laios, like being direct, being honest, being, "Hey, I'm glad to see you. Hey buddy, how you doing? Friend, pal, buddy, good old friendo." That for him is politeness. That for him is kindness and like being inviting and pro-social, right? And they are gonna have a conflict about that, a pretty severe one. And so, character design. Laios and the party are all coded in the visual language of, well, not even really Western fantasy, like more like Dragon Quest fantasy, but the kind of fantasy that is patterned after sort of medieval European fantasy, right? Which is to say, Laios is blonde, like wears like the big bulky knight armor of the overlapping metal plates. Chilchuk looks like your classic rogue with like his tabar, like his like quilted leather jerkin thing. Like Senshi's a classical dwarf, Marcel is a classical elf, like sort of something straight out of sort of Tolkien-esque halflings and stuff, right? Like that's all Western. Shuro is straight up a motherfucking samurai, right? Like it's like not even like there's no coding here. He's not from a special fantasy version of being a samurai. Like it's that samurai armor. He has like samurai like sort of medieval Japanese, I should say, rather than samurai. Like he has retainers, he has attendants. He's clearly a lord, right? He's in like some kind of like position of social and like political authority over them. These are his retainers, his servants who travel along with him. And that, like, first of all, that's a different relationship. Laios is here with his pals, his buddies, his friends. Toshiro is here with his retainers, like his servants, his attendants, right? So like there's a difference between their two characters there. And then as characters, they are designed like to look as culturally different from one another as possible, right? Like they look like they come from two completely different worlds, and that is going to feed into the conflict that they're going to have. And the character design is telling us that story immediately. Also, that Toshiro at this point is looking remarkably unhealthy and poorly cared for, whereas Laios is, well, he's Laios, right? Like he's looking well rested, he's well fed, he is moisturized, he's flourishing, he's in his lane. And this man has not slept in like like 20 days or whatever the fuck he's been doing. Right? Like that's. But the character design is doing part of that storytelling, like telling us these two characters are from completely different worlds, right? They have completely different contexts for their behavior. They have completely different context for their interactions, right? And that's, you like, again, you don't need to be some sort of fucking masterful analyst of characters to see that. Like, it comes through just from this fucking little scene. It's like just bounce. And him just standing there like exhausted, like, yeah, that's Laios. Yeah, I know. That's Laios. Oh boy, the poor man. But like what I want to remark upon is that the character design not only of Toshiro, but of the characters that surround him, and Laios and the characters that surround him tell that story, right? Like they indicate that these characters are from completely different perspectives, have completely different ways of being in the world. Let's try and see if I can find my way back to where we were. There we go. From here, I think, is a reasonable place to go from. So, 3, 2, 1, go. Oh, Chilchuck, forever trying to defend, like, protect, and sort of. He's like kind of like, again, this thing about fond family. Like, he's sort of the older brother. Oh boy. Yeah. Kabru is good at reading him. Kabru, you activated him. Like, I'm sorry, buddy. You did it to yourself. Oh, poor Toshiro. That's extremely a problem. Ah. Senshi, you flirt. Oh boy. Good hearing. Almost like you have better than human ears. Cold, Laios. But he's not wrong. He's so happy. Oh, hey, speaking of. Oh boy. Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. Ooh, the good shit. Okay. Okay. So, mm, 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 delicious. Um, like, I'm listening to the English dub. And the voice performance for Laios here is real fucking good. And I like we come in and like Toshiro is trying to fucking strangle him, and Laios isn't resisting, right? Like there's no resistance, there's no anger, there's no almost no emotion on his face except sort of a resignation, right? Whereas Toshiro is like, poor man, like it's like a bit of a fucking shock to the system after what's already happened. That's assuming this leaves the dungeon, Shuro. Right? That's like... And this is a lovely bit of Laios as a leader, right? Like, that's assuming this leaves the dungeon. Like, sure, you can tell. We won't. Like, you can doom her forever if you want to. And it's like... And again, the framing of him here is like, there's the little droplet of sweat, right? But Laios with that absolute confidence that must be speaking so directly again, right? That is clearly deeply fucking infuriating to poor Shuro. And check out that little unsheathing animation there, like with the trembling. And then, like, raises up, tension, slam. Thumb gets way longer than it's actually possible for it to be, probably. Just like to give a real snap to that shit coming out. Lovely use of the lighting on the blade to really emphasize how fucking sharp it is. And still, like, not a fucking tremor from Laios. Not a shiver, not anything. He's just sitting there. Certain in himself that he has done the right thing, right? Like, because he believes himself. He believes in his party. He believes in Marcille. He believes in what they've been doing, right? Like, he's infuriatingly free of doubt. And, like, the way Toshiro's face is rendered here, like, the way his eyes are rendered especially, is like... like, please understand, and is like, that's a... You can see that, like, being asked to understand this is to him is like, how fucking dare you ask me to understand this? And then Kaburo, who's just like, oh my god, this is so cool. They use black magic. Oh, they're fucking crazy motherfuckers. I can't wait to see how this plays out. Oh, precious boy. Precious lad. And the reveal of Fallon, of course. Not a reveal, like, we've sort of kind of had a sense of what was going to happen already, but, like, with, like, the dragon pupils. And then... I want to leave talking about her character design for the next one, because I believe in the next one is when we really get, like, the full reveal of her form. Just gonna say that the feathers are like a nice touch. And I do like that, like, she's introduced, like, crawling in this way. In this way that's sort of slightly inhuman. And framed in a way where it's almost as though, like... No, again, I'll leave that for... I'll leave that for the next episode. As ever, compliments to the fucking people in charge of, like, lighting and shading on the color. Because, like, look at the way they use, like, the lighting and, like, how fluffy, how broad, how big, how cloudy this looks. Like, with the edge lighting and then, like, these very carefully chosen darker shadows on it. Ugh. Gorgeous. Absolutely gorgeous. I also do want to have a look at the spider. creature, whatever it is, because that's clearly like a. I mean, it wouldn't be called. I keep thinking ukiyo-e in my mind, but that's not an art style so much as it's like a specific artistic thing. Okay. But like it's patterned, it's drawn after like traditional Japanese ink and watercolor art. And like rendered in the same way as like a yokai, but not quite, because like when you look at like old renderings of like yokai in sort of traditional Japanese art, they have a lot of these like this quality with this like very heavy brushwork, right? That's used to give it a lot of its form. But it's also rendered in a way that's more three-dimensional than that, I think. Yeesh. Right, like this has more of a foreshortened three-dimensionality to it, especially with like the back legs that are just like fully shadowed, than you would normally see in that kind of art, I feel. Which is interesting. Like that's an interesting blend of styles there. And like it pants like a dog. I thought that was very cute. Let's see. Where are the others? The other ninjas. Want to get a good look at them. There. Again, one thing I always appreciate about this show is characters with distinctive faces. Like faces that are clearly visually distinct from one another. You couldn't just swap costumes between them and then they'd be like, well, I mean, it's even demonstrated right here, right? Like, because a thing that can happen with some levels of anime stylization is that a character's identifiable traits become entirely located in their costuming, right? Like, so it's the hair, it's their specific accessories, it's the clothes that they're wearing, more than like the physical qualities of their body, especially when it comes to the physical qualities of the face. Where like, especially when you're like moe style characters who are so hyper stylized and so flattened that they don't really have a nose. They have like a little pinprick that sort of sits in the front of their face. They don't really have a mouth shape. They just have like this tiny itty bitty little teeny tiny little mouth thing. They don't really have eye shapes. Like, well, no, they do have eye shapes, but it's like they're so distorted that it's hard to like necessarily distinguish them from one another, because the priority is to make them cute by giving them really big eyes, right? Whereas like when you look at like this thing of like, here's the size of the pupil and the irises can be used to do that. The specific shape of the stroke on the eyelids can be used to change that. Like the size of the eyes, the size and position of the eyebrows, the shape of the nose. Like, there's so many more things that can be used to differentiate characters from one another that often just are not used because they sort of get stylized out of existence by other priorities in the art style, which is like have a tendency towards making them attractive, making them cute, making them very distinctive costume-wise. In part because it's trying to feed into like a cosplay culture, which is like, and I'm not condemning those things, I'm just saying those are trade-offs that come with problems, that come with limitations on how personable you can make a character, and Dungeon Meshi is real careful about not doing that. Every character has a distinctive, distinguishable face, where what can happen with some anime characters is that if you swap the costumes between the two, it would be like, unless you're someone who has spent hours and hours and hours looking at the very distinctive tiny differences in like the eyes between each character, you would never be able to tell who the fuck is who, because all of their personality, all of the character design happens in the costuming and not in the physicality of the character. And that wouldn't happen here, because like these two characters are wearing exactly the same fucking costume, but like with the like, difference of the hair ribbon, I suppose. And if you swap that around, you could still tell who was who, because they're designed to be physically distinct from one another in ways that are not easily obscured by mere costuming, right? And I like that. That's to me, that's much stronger and more distinctive and interesting character design. That makes the characters more worth thinking about as designs than if everything is simply located in the costume. That's more of a personal preference. That's not like an objective flaw or whatever, but You can even see it like with Laios, and sure, like even like the guy is clearly a little fucking emaciated right now, but like you look at the way that his eyes are rendered, like here for example, right, like the shape of his brows and like the sharpness that is sort of formed around his eyes and the shape of his nose relative to Laios, who has like a broader nose, who has like rounder eyes that sort of slant downwards a little bit with like heavy upper lids. It's like, yeah, that's good design. Like that's just like it's distinctive. It's varied. It's using the whole of the character to do design with, to make them distinctive, to give them an individual look that is specific to them, that like isn't shared and can't be confused for another character, right? Like unless that's sort of part of the point of the story, is that you want the characters to be confused for one another. It's just nice. It's just nice. It just makes me happy. It just makes me happy. I should fucking do a video about character design in Dungeon Meshi, shouldn't I? I should do a video about that. I should fucking do a video about this. It's 5 in the morning right now, so I'm not gonna do it now, but you mark my words. I'm gonna do a video about this. I'm gonna fucking like, yeah. You know what? Yeah, I'm gonna change my schedule. I'm gonna do a video about character design in Arcane. Well, first, boss designs of Elden Ring. Another episode of that. Then I want to do an episode about a video about character design in Arcane, because Arcane does really cool things with character design as well. And then Dungeon Meshi, because I kind of fucking need to talk about this. Because it's good, it's cool, it deserves to be discussed and analyzed. But that's gonna be over on the main channel. So if you're not subscribed to that one, like there's like closing in on 20,000 people here, so I assume some of you don't follow me on my main channel. So go subscribe over there for occasional longer video essays. Bye.